Hey, Mary,
Hey, Adam. Thank you so much for having
what
me.
was your first computer?
Wow, my first computer. Well, I am not one of those that are, kind of start when I was 8 years old. Although I have a brother who is 3 years older, and he is the one that started when he was practically when he was born. So he was really like an, extreme like geeky type. Anyway, so that wasn't my computer, but we did get some early days of like PC. So it again wasn't mine, but I'd say, the ones that I had was like one of those 80, the Intel like 86
Oh, it
the
is
old.
okay. The old one. This was like I assume 8086. So the first one there was 82. 286, 386, 4, and Pentium. Then.
That's right. Yeah, so that's the early one, 8086, something like that. Yeah. So
Then what your brother is doing then?
Ah, well, my brother's sort of semi-retired now. He's older, and but anyway, he actually, was quite an accomplished network engineer. But he
Cool.
doesn't like to talk. That's the thing. So nobody quite know him except for the people that he worked for and people that know him. But he's a very talented person, but also a bit. He just recently got diagnosed, or finally, that he actually has some autism in him. So that's why I think he just doesn't communicate too well. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So
Yeah, but if you know, but he provides communication using being a network genius, right?
that's correct. Yes, isn't it funny? Yeah, he knows all this stuff in and out. Yeah, and but yes, you're right. Yeah, he provides all the service, but he doesn't
Yeah, yeah.
speak.
Communication as a service, exactly. Um,
Exactly. I love that. Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. What you did with the computer first, if you saw this, or your brother used the computer. What you wanted to use that? You were forced to use it. You play games. So what's the story behind?
Okay, so in my case was funny because growing up, I actually grew up in Hong Kong, by the way. So it was interesting, right? So in the kind of 80s kind of time frame, yeah. And so he wasn't allowing me to use his.
Excuse me. Was Hong Kong in 80s high tech?
I'd say it's starting to be a little bit, but not
Okay.
like that high tech. But then somehow that's the thing is about my brother. He already knew about those things. That was like 70s to I think late 70s. He learned about okay, there's something called computers that are being developed, and in fact, he was like so new, and he would talk about it. He asked me to chip in with him to. He wanted to buy the first PC ever that came out, but I was like not in the not in that mindset.
Hmm.
I didn't know, so I kind of like ignore him for the longest time. It was kind of funny, and how I ended up working with computers. But I think I certainly got influenced by him too. And we did like, in fact, instead of computers, we did space mission when we were little kids. We get on like we built like we used chairs and built like stays or space rocket ship, and he would always want to be
Cool.
the captain. And I was like, okay,
And you enjoy that? You also wanted to play, the space mission and stuff?
yeah, that's right. So I enjoyed that a lot. And of course he was fan, right, of Star Trek and those times and all those like Star Wars when it came out, he was like big fan. He's still a big fan, I think.
Uh,
So I
okay, but he likes Star Trek and Star Wars at the same time.
yes, yeah, he
This
did.
is
Well,
unusual. Usually there's a two camps, Star Wars or Star Trek. There's a yeah. And what's about you? You also like Star Trek and Star Wars?
I when I was little, I remember watching Star Trek. I liked it too, but then I think when Star Wars came out, and my brother was such a big fan, so I liked it. I liked it too, and
Yeah,
I think
same
the
here. Yeah.
influence, yeah. Because I think because of him too, it's true. I like science fiction, science stuff because of my brother. I do have to admit that. So
Ah, that's cool because then you wanted to do computers because of movies and science fiction, right?
interesting. I wasn't thinking so much of that. I have to tell you what happened. So I also played the piano, classical piano, and I also
Wow.
yeah, and I sang in choir, and in fact, all these things. And then I also did sports too. So I thought, well, I maybe, in some ways too, I liked my brother, but also at the same time did not like him because he was a little bit kind of arrogant. He was very smart. He's still very smart in his own ways.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a little bit turned off, so to speak, turned off by him. I'm not going to do what he wants to do, kind of a bit of a rebellious thing. So I
Yeah.
didn't like it. But I think it's funny because you see, I saw him every day. We did the space mission, we did all the sciences stuff, and I really liked it actually deep down inside. But it was just in a state of denial for the longest time because it was just this brother sister kind of like fighting thing. So I didn't do that. So anyway, so I thought, when I first came to the United States, to go for university or college here, and I thought,
Hmm.
well, maybe I'll go into exercise science. I wanted still to get into science, but doing
Hmm.
exercise physiology, that's interesting to me too. So I thought I'd get into that. But I grew up at the time when computers was starting to become the thing, like early 90s kind of thing. So internet came
Yeah.
out and all that. So it was just kind of, I got kind of impacted by those changes. And then I started, my uncle too, who actually now he passed away, but he was like a forensic scientist and also like a
Hmm.
biologist scientist. He got into computers and he was the one that encouraged me. He said, Mary, you gotta get into computers now. This is the time. There's so much in there. There's a plenty of job opportunities as well, and should get in. And I was really good in math too, and all those things. So I thought, okay, let me give it a try. And for me, it was interesting. I have to tell you. I got intrigued actually. That's how I decided to get into computer because I came to the US and at first the first year was undeclared major. And then, you went to school and we had to register. My school at the time, college, right, in East Coast of Massachusetts in the US. So they had actually older IBM terminals, if you know, right? Those terminals where you register, do your student registration,
Hmm.
answer questions. And I remember it intrigued me because it was like, okay, I actually answered some questions. It's coming from the computer. And,
Hmm.
what year are you or something? And I had to answer. That actually intrigued me and kind of piqued my interest. I was like, oh, how does that work? I think that's how I got
Hmm.
interested. And that's how I got into, started to take computer classes because it was the thing then. And so started taking classes. And so that's how I got in. Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting now that you ask me about it. Yeah, I like that.
But it's a perfect story. I mean, the registration terminal,
Yeah.
motivated you.
Yes, yeah, it does. It did.
The conclusion would be, all these students have to re-register every week, to
Yeah,
keep motivated, right?
yeah, right. That's right. That's right. Yes, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it certainly intrigued me, and I liked it. Once I started taking classes, I really liked it. I like the fact that it's just something in it, right? You get into like a mode of thinking that you are designing something, a program or some input and request and process it and see the outcome. How joyful that that was when I first wrote my computer. So, oh, it is working. It is computing. It is doing what I'm expecting it to do. So that's exciting. I like that. So
But you registered to computer science study or something different?
so yes, so and so my first year was sort of I thought I'd go into exercise physiology, but second year I changed it in the middle of the school year.
Ah.
Yeah, I changed it to mathematics and computer science. So kind of a combination of studies. Yeah, between.
And before you started to study, you knew a programming language already, or?
Okay, interesting. I did not take any computer sciences before. I was just
Hmm.
mostly, I guess it's a lot of math. I was mostly a mathematics and in those classes that I was involved with. But then once I started taking computer classes, actually back then it was taking Pascal. If you are, you
But yeah,
might,
yeah, sure.
yeah,
Turbo
it was.
Pascal, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That Pascal and then later Turbo Pascal. So that's what I started learning was writing code in Pascal. And it was a good language to learn data
Yeah,
structures,
yeah.
as you're aware. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, more
I also
academic.
did a bit Pascal in my leisure just for fun, but I really
Okay.
appreciate it because there was something different. I started with basic and then Pascal, and Pascal was more sophisticated. So I really enjoyed Pascal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's the language I started.
So, but before you started to study, your brother or you, the brother, didn't hack something on the computer. You just play games, or what was the story be?
Oh, okay. Yes, mostly just playing games, I think. Now, in my
Okay.
brother's case, he actually he would take apart the computer and then put it back together again. And he just has that
Okay.
yeah. He has just that kind of talent. Yeah, he knows what it is and without being taught. He's just very talented with all the
This is really interesting. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, that's right. So yeah. But to me, I'm less of a, taking apart computers and try to put them together. I'm less of that, but I'm more of a software. I think I'm more, yeah, definitely on the computing software side. So, yeah.
So you started with Pascal, then Turbo Pascal, and in your leisure, you started, to build something, or you were just happy, to doing the homework or assignments or whatever?
You are right. I think for me, I was mostly at the time, right, in college, and it was just mostly like doing homework assignment, I'd say. Yeah, I didn't do anything extra. Plus, there were also other things I was involved with college, with the school, with the whole experience too. So yeah, so I didn't really.
Whole experience.
Yeah.
I didn't want to know what it actually means, the whole experience.
Well, say, but for me, being like a student, right, from not
Yeah,
local, not to the US at that time, and there
yeah.
were a lot of things to learn, the culture, getting to know the people and all that. And I found that actually I always enjoy meeting with people. So I get to know people and other things, other than just sitting in front of the computer, I guess. So yeah, but anyways, so yeah, I was trying to meet people and doing
Okay.
things and all those stuff. So yeah, that's right.
So what happened after Turbo Pascal then?
Oh, after Turbo Pascal. Well, for me too. Well, I'd say, right, okay, if you ask within the context of computers, then
Yes.
yeah. So at school at that time, right, they were also learning. At the time, it's interesting. It was just, I don't know if you were involved in that time period in which they used to call like programming language like 3GL, right, third generation language. So
Yeah,
those are
yeah,
all the Fortran, all that. So I took
yeah. And for GL as well. Yeah.
yes, and then for GL, and then getting into that, and so it's actually what was intriguing to me. I recall at that time was the SQL. So SQL was starting
Yeah.
to become new, and actually my teacher too at that time, I took a class in Introduction to Database, and that's when they taught about Oracle SQL, and that's when I learned SQL. You learn database theory, normalization, and how do you do joins and all these things, and that's when I learned it. And I remember it was interesting for a while too for me, and so I was kind of getting into some of the databases and things like that. And then if you kind of
Because it's math, right? So SQL is actually lots of math behind SQL, right?
sure, yes, totally, a lot
This
of
is maybe why you enjoy that, because what I understood is you really like math, and if you take a look at a SQL, this is very puristic, all the how it's
sure.
called normal forms. I think around this is
Yes,
like just the optimizations and transformation is just it's like set logic or how it called it. No, you are
yeah,
working with sets.
sets exactly, set theory and things like that. Yeah, exactly.
That's set theory exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I also enjoy doing that. So those I got into a bit too, learning about databases and at that time again it was new to the learning about SQL, so SQL or yeah. So I
Yeah.
did that, yeah. And then also too there was also I took a class in networking theories too, so learning the 7 layers and all of these and
Ah,
in those days.
OSI, right? The layers of OSI.
The 7 layers, yeah, all of these things, and it's fascinating too. I think it really opens up to how do you do design. Even this kind of concept applies to you designing software, the different layers and abstraction and things like that. So
Yeah.
that was also very good. Yeah, I really enjoy. But I think one thing I really enjoy when it gets to my senior years, so the last year of college, I had to write a paper, and so I took operating systems classes. And that time was
Okay.
interesting. An IBM MVS system that I study and I wrote the paper, but now I cannot remember exactly. But myself though, I always am fascinated about operating systems and how it works and how it manages systems. So I like that a lot too. So I did that basically in my senior year. I did a paper on on like operating systems, like internals
Oh,
and
you
things.
did a paper on it, so that's
Yeah.
interesting. Uh huh.
Yeah, that's right. Not like too fancy because it wasn't a graduate level studies. It was a bachelor's level. So not like too theoretical or sophisticated, but it was kind of pretty good too. I guess I did spend the time research and did a paper on that because like for graduation you need to have like a paper, essentially.
And
So
this
yeah.
was the which operating system was it?
Oh, it's actually old, right? Some MVS. So the IBM,
MVS. Okay.
yeah, MVS,
Hmm.
yeah, the more
Hmm.
mainframe. Yeah, yeah. Like I
Hmm.
said, I graduated like late 80s. So it's kind of, those are the things, of the day, of those days. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What is still around is the AS400 from IBM and
Yes.
the ZOS. These are still and what I know that I had a lots of chats with AS400 engineers or developers, and they really love it. So they say, okay, AS400 is the best operating system. This is what I wanted to know. So they really like it, and they try to convince me, that the memory and the database and transaction, everything in the same memory, it
Yeah.
just works. And they were really are really fascinated by the operating system.
Yeah.
And I also was interested in it and took a look, and yeah, it's actually interesting stuff, right? Is this the opposite of microservices? This is the exact opposite of microservices, but it's still working.
Yes, yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I agree with you. Yes, yes.
Hmm.
I think to me it's interesting to see how, like, everything kind of evolve over time. And it is true, maybe some things are, so to speak, right, out of date and things like that. They're old and everything. But yet, I think as human beings, as this in this computer revolution, as we all go through it in a general sense, we actually had to go through that stage in order to arrive at today's stage because of what we've done in those stages. We learn and then we take it and we take what we've learned and move forward to design new things that are
Yeah,
better.
but sometimes I have the feeling that we forget about the problems we had and the solutions, and we try to solve already solved problems again, and just use different names for it. This is, for instance, AS400, you can learn a lot from it. If you for certain use cases, you don't have to go in production with millions of microservices. Maybe one machine with big memory and a simple design could be also interesting, right? So I mean, there's always different solutions to a problem, and what I see is that the entire IT industry is going, full extreme, full power in one direction, and they say, okay, it doesn't work, so they reject completely and go back,
Yeah.
rename it, but maybe something is in the middle, so you don't have to be that extreme. Sometimes you can say, okay, we can solve some use cases with a small microservices, and the others can be monolithic or whatever. This is what I'm saying, and it's interesting to learn, from the older developers, because what they did on the mainframes was actually amazing. They were able, to achieve a lot of throughput. I don't know how many transactions per second, but a lot. I was in a project where there's really the largest AS400 installation, so it was interesting actually to see this. So just saying, it's not like the technology's legacy was rejected. It
Yeah.
just, maybe I think the developers get bored too early.
Ah, that's a good theory. I do believe. Yes, yes, it is true. We are always constantly looking for what we think is new things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Very
You
good.
have a
But it's I just interrupt you, but it will be MVS was interesting for me. So
yeah.
what happened then? So I mean, you stick with. So what happens after the paper?
What happened after the paper? Well, interestingly, right, then I graduated and then had to look for new jobs. And I have to say, then I got a job. My very first job was IT department for a chemical company called Monsanto,
Okay,
which is like then
okay.
they're based headquarters still. They're a big company, chemical making resins and all these smelly chemical
Mm.
plants. I actually got my first job there was an IT department, and then I started working. But I recall myself it's like, well, all these theories, all these operating systems, it's not. I cannot use that in a job like that. It was more like I'm servicing the IT
Mm-hmm.
department. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, though, that's what the world's, the most of the systems are about. You're solving problems for the business or some
Yeah.
operation that you do. So yeah, so that's where I worked. And what's interesting, the system was actually at the time was like old, right? It's in or some parts of it were actually in Fortran, written in Fortran,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's when I brought up these 3GL, 4GL, and they were working on a new file system or database in between the SQL stuff and the old structure file system is called Info, very old. And I remember the old documentation was kind of old binders and all that. And so I was kind of helping them to maintain. And the system is actually interesting. I mean, it's applicable anywhere. To this day, it's a business software that you help with a chemical plant, right? Any can be kind of factory too. You have different projects that are happening. So the system is tracking projects and the cost. So like you're like tracking number of hours worked, all of these things, and the workers allocation, and then has all the accounting associated with it, because how many hours they work, how many, how much to charge, different departments, things like that. So it's more like an internal accounting kind of project management system, and that's what it was. So that was my very first project, but using old technology. So yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. So
after this, what happens then?
Okay, after this, I decided, well, it's too old. I wanted to do something a bit newer. So I moved to, I was in Massachusetts, so moved to Boston. There were a lot more exciting things there. It's also near MIT. I started taking classes, learning about X Windows at the time. And so that was interesting too. And then I worked for the Department of Transportation, the US Department. So a bit more government contract work. And that was a bit more research-oriented type of systems. They are just small systems. And that was funny. I was just recently talking with someone about how, at the time, right, database, we also undergoing a lot of changes. There's things like Oracle coming in. I started working with some early, versions of Oracle for the databases and helping more like storing of data. It's really, really early stage of using, these fancier database systems. But anyway, then there were just a bunch of small projects that I help out with. And not only that, I was going to say, then there was also a thing called DBase. Not sure if
exactly. DBase, DBase and Clipper. You remember Clipper?
Yes, Clipper. Yeah. There's also somebody telling me recently saying FoxPro they work on. I did not on FoxPro, but the Clipper I remember, and then also then help out with DBase 3, because there was some things I remember I had to take some DBase 3 files and transfer them and essentially integrate or kind of transfer the data into Oracle database, but very manual, that whole process, because you take the DBase kind of files and then you have to essentially massage it, some script to massage it and then get it ready so you can do the import into the Oracle database. So I've done stuff like that. It's kind of more like utility, loose ended.
But it sounds cool. It's like, NoSQL to SQL bridge, right? You wrote with big data pipelines. This is what you can write on your resume, right?
That's right. Yeah, you kind of think about, yes. What the modern day we call it. Big data.
What you should do, Mary, you should suggest a talk somewhere, about the NoSQL DBase serverless database, right? and then just whether someone will notice or not, that this is just a joke. This would be actually fun, to try to sell, very old technology and see what happens, on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun thing. Maybe, yeah. Maybe you give me good suggestions. Maybe I'm always interested in coming up with new ideas. Maybe, like you said, I mean, as developers, we always look for new things to do. And these days, I feel we go to conferences. I mean, they're great. We listen to all of these things, talk. But maybe we should do something like retro, kind of like a retro thing, kind of nostalgic. Yeah. Think of the old days and then have people suggest, different topics that they can just share, the old times. Yeah, that's probably good too. And
what I did 1 year ago, I delivered a topic. It was an online conference with the title EJB Developers, Now is Your Time. And I explained with EJB ideas how AWS Lambda is working.
Oh.
And it turns out that this is almost identical. There are just minor differences. And if you know EJBs, you are actually a serverless expert. And this was really fun because, there was an online audience that they asked me questions and they say, you are actually right. Yeah, there's different names, but the concepts were there. So it's really valuable, I would say. But it's not like, the old technologies were bad. They just worked and they worked perfectly because we were highly optimized. So we can still learn from them.
Sure. I agree with you totally. You give me very good ideas now. I should really Yeah. You can give a
Not
talk.
that, since after the talk, all your conference talks get rejected and you are jobless. This is not my fault. So be careful with with my ideas.
That is so funny. Yeah, yeah. But it is, you brought up very good point because it is true. A lot of concepts, they are probably just, they're still like, I think the core principles are there, but it's just new ways of packaging them up and
Mhm.
presenting them. Like you said, it is serverless. Yes, it is. So, yeah, things like
What
that.
give you another example from Java because so it started with remote method invocation RMI. Maybe you know heard about that. So you
That's
can they say RMI is no more the thing. So there we do RMI over IOP because Corba was a thing. So Corba was more complicated but was still lightweight. And they say Corba is too heavyweight. What happened then? Corba disappeared from enterprise and appeared on devices and IoT. And I say, how is possible? Everyone's saying, Corba is heavyweight, and now we have Corba and IoT. I mean, this is not possible. And then they say Corba is legacy, and it died. And what happened a few years ago? gRPC happened. And if
oh,
you look at gRPC and compare gRPC to Corba, I would say identical concepts. They have even the interface generation. The concept is identical. It's just renamed. And
okay,
and what
okay.
surprised me, it became really popular. So but I mean, you cannot just say Corba is bad because I mean maybe the API was not fun to work with. We could simplify this for sure, but the idea was actually good. What's proves that gRPC is very successful, right? So this is actually a story which I observed and I said, this is actually funny to watch. But yeah, you could actually sell a talk three times, right? You could talk, the first 5 years about RMI, then over Corba and gRPC, and it would be just same slides with different captions, I would say.
That's right. Yes, same slides there, but different. Yeah, like different labels. I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's right. Very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So what happened then after your DBase NoSQL to SQL bridge
Oh,
project?
those things. So okay, so those days were gone. But what did I do? I was actually doing more on with like C and Unix. I was in that
Cool.
kind.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, C Unix environment. I
Which
actually worked.
Unix?
Oh, what flavor? I actually okay. Started off, I'm trying to think. I actually work for a company called Stratus, and they're based also in Massachusetts. They do fault tolerance, high availability
Mhm.
systems. And but it's interesting. I didn't work directly with the OS side, by operating system, but I
Mhm.
was helping with a structured file system that
Mhm.
they had that run on their hardware. And it's they were actually looking into transaction systems, and maybe you also have
Wow.
worked with that. So transaction
Mhm.
type, and it was called what was it? The company is called Transarc. Um,
Mhm.
which later was bought by IBM. And it was
Mhm.
actually interesting. There was a very well known at that time uh, person also doing, I think, is a professor, but apparently he got lost at sea. Nobody could find him. His name is Jim Gray. I don't know if you've heard of, but he wrote this big
Okay.
Bible of transaction system. So anyway, that was something. I think he worked for not IBM, Microsoft too. So anyway, that was that Transarc
And
system
he
that
he was lost at the sea,
he
so
was
he
lost
got
at
lost.
sea. Yeah, he got lost at sea. I remember I read, I said one, quite recently, I found out, oh, I wonder where he was, right? Oh, he was the big transaction, kind of well known figure at the time.
So
And
there is
then
no rollback now, right? So we could roll back this. They should
yeah,
appear
rollback.
again.
Yeah, no rollback. Yes, no rollback. Yeah, he's gone. He just admitted, admitted he unfortunately lost at sea. But it was
Yeah.
really weird, and because I also wonder, well, where has it led? Leading us to with his expertise in transactions. So. But the point I'm trying to make, since you're asking about what I worked on, so I worked on the Transarc file system. It was complicated too. It's dealing with transactions and
Yes.
things
Sure.
like that. Yeah, so I didn't work so much into the transaction side, but it's a bit more on the file system type of thing. Because anyway, at the time, Stratus was trying to integrate their Transarc system
Mhm.
into their operating system to support their high availability OS. And so yeah, it was interesting times. Yeah, it was in Unix and C. And Unix, when you ask to, they also have a Stratus operating system. Plus, they also, I forgot which one, but some flavor of Unix that they're trying to also be running on their hardware too. So that's what I worked on. So
Actually, this was a really interesting project you did.
Yeah, that
So,
was
but whether if I read something from the transactional file system, do I get two copies? So if someone writes, or how the consistency will like ACID consistency, or you remember this because it's interesting concept.
it really is interesting, but very good question. I should go back to that. I did not work
Hey
on.
Mary, I thought you will prepare to the podcast, with me.
You asked about my history. I was thinking about event streaming, so I didn't go that far. But I'm trying to remember. But those are good too. Now that you asked me about it, it was like a long time ago. So yes.
Yeah, no, just interesting. So because what interests me, your transition to Java, So but this is getting more and more interesting. So what's so we did the transactional file system. So how long do you stay with the company? What happened afterwards?
Oh, sure. So I think because of various reasons and because of Transarc, they eventually sold it to IBM something. And I think even with the company itself, they decided to abandon the idea. Something like we were porting, essentially, right? Taking the Transarc and porting it over to their native OS, and it didn't work or something. So. And I actually lost my job. Unfortunately, the team got downsized. But then I moved on, right? Moved on to some other thing. And I actually joined, became, okay, that actually was an interesting project in terms of, for me, giving me some example. Like, I don't know why I always run into projects like that. They are unclear. And I got in, and was still kind of learning my way, kind of within my first 10 years of, after graduating. So I worked actually for indirectly, right, for Sun Microsystems, but I worked on an SMTP. You're familiar with the mail transfer protocol, but actually specifically is the mail transfer agent, MTA. So I had to port that, and at the time, there was also Solaris, right? Solaris OS. I work on Solaris Unix too. And Solaris, they were running, actually, I should say Spark OS becoming the thing. So it's from Solaris, Sun OS to Solaris. Actually, I should say Sun OS to Solaris, but they also run on Spark and also Intel x86 chip. So then they wanted to make sure SMTP also runs. At the time, they already had a port on Spark, but they wanted it to also run on the Intel 86 architecture. So I was helping out too with that project. It's essentially porting it from Spark to i86. But the interesting thing is that they were using the Lotus Notes. If you recall, this company called Lotus Notes. Yeah. And so they are about the Lotus is an integrated, a spreadsheet. Email, right? All these things. And so that's the
Domino server, right? The Notes Domino, the Domino server?
Yeah, remember.
And did you know actually that the open source project Couchbase, the Couch database is based on Notes? So actually one of the committers started Couchbase. So it's actually Lotus Notes is still alive indirectly.
Wow. Okay. Now I learned something new. Wow. Okay. That I did not know. But the thing is, though, I did not work on the Domino side. But again, I worked on the SMTP MTA mail transfer gateway to port it. So it's kind of very specific kind of project. But at the time, too, I remember I had to be on site at Lotus, the company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I got there, but there was nothing. And they put me underneath a stairwell. It was really weird. I felt like, okay, I'm a consultant working on this project at a foreign company, a third-party company. No desk and no machine. So the Sun Microsystem people said, okay, we're going to ship you the Spark machine. We're going to ship you the i86. So they shipped the machine there. No operating systems. So I had to actually do everything from scratch, right? And kind of install Spark, install all of these. So to me, I'm like, I never did it before. So I kind of learned on the spot. And there was somebody from Sun too who came and was kind of helping out. We finally set things up. So that was quite an experience in terms of, how like you go in and work and you expect, okay, I got my laptop all set up, ready to go, write code. No, at that time, no operating system, nothing. How do I connect, the network? How do I do all these things? So the good news is that I learned so much from that job. And it was a consulting work, I think.
This was like, now we have bring your own device, bring your own operating system, right?
Yes. Exactly. So that's what I went through. Yeah, so it gave me a really good sense of appreciation too, because of those
But
experience.
was it? You remember the workstation? Which one was it? Was it like a tower or what was it?
It wasn't a tower. It was a Spark. They gave me a Spark machine, right? The earlier, I can't remember even like what the model name was, but it
Okay,
was.
because I really wanted to have a tower. This is why I'm asking. This was later, maybe 95 or something. So, but I was impossible to buy in Germany. So I forgot the name. This was like the smallest, workstation. But it was the same workstation was used in Sun Microsystems Training Center. Forgot the
Oh,
name, but it was a nice one.
oh, okay, yeah. So I didn't have that, but I recall, yeah, it was just one of those Sun kind of Spark workstation that are,
And you
yeah.
liked the experience later working on the machine, or
Yes, actually, I liked it, even though it was difficult because I really was not trained for that. It's completely like, almost seems like, okay, when I interviewed for the job, they didn't say it. They just said porting job. And so porting, yes, it might be kind of, kind of mundane, so to speak, because I was just expecting, okay, I'm going to be starting to build these systems and you find out different, all these problems and you go and fix it and all these things in your code base and rebuild it and keep, doing. But then not knowing there was no machine, so that really kind of completely like unexpected. But that, like I said, I always welcome, right, any kind of situations that comes and you just tackle it. You don't worry so much about, is it this and we need to get this done. We need to get that set up, some necessary steps. You go and get it done so you can move on to what you need to do, kind of thing. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
yeah, cool. Then MTA was ported, right? I mean, you could
yeah.
finally send emails. What happened then? So the job was done, and then
Yeah, that's why it was like consulting. We kind of work, right? So I think we got it done, got it built, and was able to run, right, on the purpose of that consulting work was to have it run on the I-86 machine. So for running on Spark, yeah, the MTA. So yeah, so that was good, and so that was good. I should say Solaris on I-86. So we were able to get it built, even though it was still buggy, right? And all of these things are never very easy to solve. And plus, you are working with another vendor, so there are a lot of dependencies in there too. So there were also, meetings too to kind of understand some issues, or we try to report issues and trying to get them to fix it. That type of stuff too. That I had to go through. There was also another, like I said, another consultant there. So it's just between me and him. We were taking care of this, and we set up all the
okay.
machines. So yeah.
And when you started with Java, or what was it?
Oh yeah.
What happens between your work and your first Java
Oh,
contact
that's
to Java, the first contact?
we didn't even get to Java. Finally, we are okay. So for me, I okay at the time I was working. Then I switched then to another company, Sybase. If you maybe aware,
Okay, the database company. Okay,
database, yeah. And
so
then
after MTA, you started at Sybase.
yes, that's right. So I
Cool.
first joined their Power Builder division,
Yeah,
and Power
yeah,
Builder
yeah.
C++, as you know, and so anyway, so then Sybase to the main company, they of course they were a partner with like J2EE, right? Back then was Java 2 Enterprise Edition. They participate in specifications,
What
EJD,
was the server, Sybase? You remember the name of the server?
the server, yes, for J2E server, what they call it J2E. It's called EA server, Enterprise Application Server. So they name it
Okay,
short from EA, but they used to have a code name called Jaguar too when they first started.
Jaguar. Okay.
Jaguar, and then EA server. But so yeah, essentially, it's just I worked directly on the J2EE server team, development team. So I was
Wow.
too,
So you
yeah.
started with Java. Just you started, to program J2E as a first Java project.
Yes, as a Java project is directly working on the J2 on the JEE server. Yeah.
It's
So now,
crazy. There was like year 2001, 2002.
yes, that I actually joined them 1997 or 8. That's when I transfer with Power Builder, because what happened was, okay. So they were saying that to make them more value added is that, well, their JEE enterprise server would also support native Power Builder components, and I
Okay.
worked Power Builder team. So they said, I got a chance. I said, okay, I want to work on Java. So that's how I transfer. And then I was helping out with
So you transitioned from C to Java, right?
From C to Java. Yeah, that was
and you like the experience?
Yeah, I like it, and that's how I got into working with Java too, because of that.
What was your very first Java IDE?
Good question. Interestingly, I have to tell you, I was still using Emacs for the longest time.
Yeah.
So with Unix and C, so I love it too. But it is true. I first started on the Java project. I was still using Emacs. Then later, people were saying that Eclipse. So that's when I started using Eclipse, and IBM was already kind of got their hands into doing Eclipse IDE. So that was my first official IDE. Although I have to say NetBeans too, because that being also more easier to get or something. I downloaded, I remember I used some tryout NetBeans, but eventually too, I settled down essentially using Eclipse. Yeah, that's why I was using it for a while. So
I use NetBeans also a lot, so it's interesting. Yeah. And what you did with the J2E? What do you have to implement on the server? You remember?
Okay, so for me it was interesting. Less, about application, because I was in the product development. So I help out. Actually, there's also a piece of that project was on management, like managing. So they actually were using Swing to develop a management console. So that's the project I work on. And it was actually good for me because I didn't know anything about Java at that time. And basically the manager said, would you like to help us? And you can learn Swing. And Swing was the thing of the time, because at first it was the AWT, right? So abstract window. Then the Swing was the big thing. So I said, okay, I want to learn Swing. And that's how my first project with Java was more working with Swing. And they develop a pretty nice framework too that's kind of wrap around using Java essentially. So that's the Java experience I had in the beginning, was working with Swing. And the nice thing too for me to work on that project, I found, was I start to really appreciate, because you're managing the whole system, so you have to understand the spec too. And that's when I really studied the spec, because you have to understand how do you do the different. I remember the different different hierarchy, right, of class loader. I still remember, right? You have application level, you have
you have the application EA, WAR, and EJB, and they were like hierarchical structure of class loaders, right?
That's right, class loader. So that's when I kind of learned it, because I had to understand. Then I know how to support it through a management interface. How do you enable people to use it? You have to understand that first. So I kind of spent a fair amount of time understanding EJB, and then session. Well, of course, getting into EJB too. The session being the stateless and stateful, all of these things. And so I learned it.
Didn't you know? So you are experts. Those are crazy. Okay.
Expert. Interesting though. I didn't write as many applications. Right? It was just more like understanding that and how do I implement it. But to understand real world implementation is also a different kinds of skill set too. How do people use it to turn it into useful business solutions? Right?
Yeah. Maybe. Do you know Marina Vatkina? You know the Marina Vatkina. She was as EJB spec lead.
Oh, okay.
And the interesting part, I had some ideas, about what could be improved, because I used EJBs and Java in my projects all the time.
Yeah.
So I always, look forward to meet her, and I before I would write stupid emails, I just go to her and tell my ideas, right? It's like, hey Marina, my idea is to do this and this, and she looked at me and said, okay, if we do this, you will break this and this and this and this, so better forget it. So okay. So the next time try, and I say she was like a walking spec, oracle. She knew everything. If we do this will break. This was actually a fun experience. So whatever I tried to contribute, it never worked. Because she exactly knew what the implications are of my ideas. But yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know. I know of a Marina, but working for Sybase, not at the Oracle.
She was for Sun Microsystems. I think it was EGB3. Maybe it was later.
Oh, the later. Oh, I wonder, because I know she joined Oracle later too. Maybe that's the same Marina, because I know somebody.
Maybe.
Yeah. Wow, small world.
So we have to investigate this, because interesting.
Good idea.
So how long you stick with Sybase?
I stick with them until 2004. So it was about 7 years that I was at
Oh, not
Sybase.
bad. And then what happened?
Okay, well, then family, because of family wanting,
Yeah.
at the time, I was in San Francisco, ended up, right, for Sybase
Okay.
and all these, and they moved, they're based original.
And
They
you
are
like
now,
San Francisco, or you preferred Massachusetts or
yeah,
Boston? So what's
Massachusetts and then Boston and here. I think different places have different, kind of feel and
yeah?
culture even to it too,
Mhm.
right? The climate and everything. But I think every place I've been to, Boston in the U.S., where I live in Boston area, and then San Francisco, and now in Chicago, every place is different, right? Their temperature and everything. But the thing is, that California's got earthquake, so that's what I'm kind
Yeah.
of afraid of, and of course more expensive too. That's another thing. So
Okay.
yeah, so if there's can be a place that you could gather the best of three different places, that would be good. But that doesn't exist. Maybe utopia, but yeah,
Utopia. Okay.
utopia, like a utopian city. But I think yeah, definitely each place has its own charm. I should put it like
Okay.
that. And I do enjoy each place a lot too. So yeah.
So what happened then in 2004? Family, and then
Yeah, family moved to Chicago, but amazing too. Now I look back, right now that you talk about it, is my first time thinking of this. Although I thought about it before, but to kind of lay it out, in the front talking about it, it's good that have worked with a lot of products and understand spec, but times to actually put it in action. And coming into Chicago, it's Chicago is more like not like an innovation, technology innovation type of
Mhm.
city or area. Mostly, too, there are companies that are financial companies, manufacturing, all of these, they are using, they're user of this technology. So as a
Mhm.
result, I was looking for work. I actually enjoy research and product development, but I couldn't find any job like that. There were more kind of chances,
Mhm.
opportunities in other application, so to speak, application area. But I think it's a
Mhm.
good thing because I really find myself, I really learn so much, and it's good as a developer. I keep expanding my horizon. So here it is in Chicago. I first worked for Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I mean, I worked for a couple companies too, but mostly consulting. I did work for Mercantile Exchange, which is a financial exchange, doing futures and options trading,
Mm.
very different than what I was used to. And they are user of Java technology. And in fact, these financial companies in Chicago, they are very sophisticated too. I should put it that way, because they are very advanced because of their needs. They have to look ahead. And I think if you
Mhm.
compare them with other types of industries, the financial ones definitely are more advanced in terms of, progressive in terms of wanting to actually use the latest technology. And if not, they write their own framework. And that's what happened too. And Mercantile Exchange, actually, they've written some of their own trading matching algorithms, for example, that I remember I asked them, I said, why don't you use Java technology or enterprise? They said, well, that's too slow. The performance, it cannot meet what we need. And for example, like Chicago too had another board options exchange, which is now part of another company now. But at the time too, they also, the whole matching algorithms, they write the whole trade matching. They do it. They did their own, just because they were saying that, well, if we use Java
Yeah.
technology, it's just the performance is not acceptable. So
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
did their own. Yeah. So very,
Mhm.
very interesting too. So yeah. But as such, it becomes very proprietary to their technology.
Yeah, but
That's
for instance, I think this the LMAX. This is the London exchange, and they use Java a lot internally. For instance, interesting.
oh, okay. Interesting too. I did not.
If you can search for LMAX disruptor, and
Oh,
this LMAX disruptor is a pattern actually interesting for high. This is like a ring buffer, very fast one, but this is
oh,
actually is used by the London exchange.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. Did you work on that? It sounds like
No,
you
no,
learned.
I was just interested, in general with them because I was also in high performance projects, so I, try to find out what the others are doing. But I didn't work for the London exchange, but I know that it exists.
That exists. Okay, yeah, I'll look. Yeah, that's another project related.
LMAX Disruptor. This is
And
your home assignment,
disruptor.
homework.
Okay, okay, okay. I like
Cool.
that.
So interesting what you did. So you work for the different companies, but what I understood, it was not always Java, right?
That is correct. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Java mainly. Then when you talk about, like, since coming to Chicago, mostly
Hmm.
still a lot of companies are definitely have a backend that's Java. But as the times are changing, right, and you have web, you have the cloud now coming into
Yeah.
play. having Docker and all these things. So yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely too. There are other areas too. I got a bit into mobile, for example, mobile development, but it's part of an enterprise architecture thing that
Yeah.
they have Java backend, but very old Java at the time. For example, at this one cell phone company. So, but they also have like front end. They were using Angular and even like the front end for backend type of thing, like with Node.js and things
Okay.
like that. And the mobile stuff was with them because at the time too, they actually at first had a mobile application that was I should say mobile, but they have a website, so they just use their web browser on their mobile to do their mobile thing to tell user, but they wanted to make it more native, mobile app. But instead of taking too much time and nobody knew enough, they decided to use Apache Cordova. That one,
Okay.
yeah. So it's more like generated. You write your
Yeah.
code JavaScript essentially and generate Android and iOS code. So
Yeah.
I also help with that project for a bit too. So yeah, so it gets quite interesting to kind of understand how things can evolve so much essentially. Yeah. So
So and then what happened? So what?
oh, you mean with that project? Well, that project is essentially launch it. Kind of they call it when you deploy, it becomes native.
But you switched then. But you switched then to Red Hat at one point of time, right?
To I'm sorry, to which
To
one?
Red Hat or IBM, right?
Oh,
So you switch.
IBM. Okay, so that's it. So that I work on that mobile project with the part of the enterprise. Then after that, 2018, that's when I switched to IBM and became a developer advocate. So yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, so that was like 5 years, talking about almost 5 years ago. That's when the last project I worked on was that mobile thing, and then became developer advocate. Yeah, but
And what you did in IBM exactly? Because I met you from time to time. Or not might. We always missed right us. And the first time we really met in person was in October last year, I think, in Poland, right? Which was amazing. Yeah.
Yes, that it is true. And of course, at the time, I already heard when I looked at who's going to be speaking there. It's like Adam, Ben. I said, "Oh, I get to finally meet Adam in person because you have said
Yeah.
you're such a famous person in Java." Anyway, but it is very true. So I started becoming a developer advocate, but it's nice too. Then started talking, and it kind of brings me to a different aspect of the field. Right, I'm more about advocacy now and less about going deep down to write code, that type of stuff. But yeah, that's what it is. At IBM too, I first joined was the Java developer advocacy team. And with a few folks too, you might know also in the Java community, Pratik and Sebastian Dashner, and also Billy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we were a small team, developer advocacy, and I helped out mostly in the reactive systems because at the time IBM was having a partnership with Lightband and was doing their Akka, some Akka work with Akka, but it was short-lived, not too long because of the partnership didn't get renewed. But I help out too. Initially was with the reactive systems like advocacy, so it was new for me at the time and just learning about it and how do I do advocacy around it. And I think
I always try to avoid. This is very fortunate or good that we didn't met because I always try, to avoid reactive programming in Java because it makes things really complicated. If you don't have to, I don't use no reactive, and I'm really looking forward to Loom, to Project Loom, the new stuff, because this will make programming simple. Except, what we do the next time, hopefully, is streaming. In a streaming, if the data is pushed to you, in my opinion, reactive programming makes a lot of sense. But, if I am a service and I'm calling HTTP, for instance, in my opinion, reactive programming, HTTP is not reactive. Why I should use reactive programming to call something in request and response. So this is interesting. So, but you did reactive programming at IBM. What else?
Okay, I think mostly was the reactive programming, reactive systems, and then because of what was I gonna say, the reactive systems and with Akka, but because then we weren't supposed to do Akka anymore. Then I switched to doing because of the Red Hat acquisition, and of course Red Hat then comes there folks working on Eclipse, Vertex, things like that. So I also got bit more Vertex and all of these. And then later too, there's restructuring. I got to join the microprofile team, or the team that's actually more on the business side, right? WebSphere.
Oh, I didn't knew that you work with microprofile, because I use microprofile all the time. Actually, I'm still a huge fan.
Yeah, that's right. So so I worked with that microprofile team for a year or so. Then Open Liberty, microprofile hooked up. Yeah, yeah. So that's what I was like doing advocacy for those systems too. So yeah.
So, and then this was your last, task, and IBM, and then microprofile was done, and right, or something else?
Yeah. So that's what I was doing to help out with microprofile.
And no Quarkus? There was no Quarkus?
You didn't? Yeah, I think because, at the time when I was the Java team, then we were doing some Quarkus, but because I switched to WebSphere, and WebSphere decided, well, let's not advocate for Quarkus, we just want to do microprofile. So that's why I not have a chance to work with Quarkus.
Because actually using right now Quarkus with microprofile all the time, so it's interesting.
Yeah, so, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And then you switch companies to where?
Yeah, so now, I should skip something, but now let me kind of jump to where I am now. I'm at DataStax and working on Apache Pulsar, and again, DataStax too. The whole that their main flagship product is Apache Cassandra, and also a managed cloud platform. Yeah, managed cloud.
This is where you can. This is where you can really use your DBase skills, because it's also NoSQL, right? So you can transfer your DBase skills to Cassandra.
Except I'm on
This was just joking.
Yeah.
But Cassandra is a great Java database. Apache Cassandra is very performant. It's the one of the most popular Java one of the first NoSQL databases, and it's very similar also to a bit to Mongo and a bit to DynamoDB, I would say. So DynamoDB and Cassandra are similar.
Yeah, exactly. NoSQL and very fast, high availability, all of these things. Essentially, there are a lot of big companies using it too. So
and DataStax provides support for Cassandra and Apache Pulsar.
Yeah, that's right. So what happened is that a year and a half or so ago, and database, I should say, DataStax decided that we're not only just doing database. Cassandra, after all, is data at rest, right? More about that, but they wanted to get into data in motion and data in use, that type. So that's when they said, it's time getting to real time. From a business perspective, our product can also handle data that's kind of fast, real time kind of thing. So that's when they decided to adopt Apache Pulsar, and now Apache Pulsar.
What means adopt? That doesn't mean that the DataStax company are committing a lot, or are they building extensions to Pulsar? What does it mean adapt?
Adapt. Well, in terms of yes. For first and foremost, we also have developers that are committers to the Apache.
Cool.
Project, right? And we have PMC on the projects too. So we have C2 in the project. We participate in all of these things. And then another thing too is true. Then we launch. We're able to also support the Apache Pulsar in our managed cloud platform. So in other words, right? People, if you want to use Apache Pulsar, you don't want to deal with managing it, and much like you don't want to manage your Cassandra, use our cloud platform. Kind of. So the cloud platform, and also some added benefits to it. There are also new features, for example, that we also support. But as such, the project is still evolving. There are lots of things. So it's not the end of it yet. There's still a lot of features.
What I found fascinating from the beginning is, for instance, Kafka became really popular, but Pulsar at the beginning had more features. For instance, tiered storage. That that if you have topics, and if you would like to to move all data to archival storage or cheaper storage, so Pulsar had this really from the beginning, and Kafka introduced it a few months ago. So maybe because behind Kafka from the beginning there was commercial company, and Pulsar was just open source project at the beginning. Maybe it will change with the DataStax involvement now. But I was always curious why Pulsar does not really take off, because they had 5 years ago more features than Kafka. What they also had built-in connectors, as I understand, and also the streaming is a part of the platform. In Kafka we have the Kafka and the Kafka Streams is like additional library.
Yeah,
And
that's
this is
right.
all fascinating, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And also, not only that too, for Pulsar too, I wanted to point out, and that's when doing advocacy is, I like to tell people is that the way Pulsar was designed in the beginning is takes into account that we are operating in the cloud now, so we have to think like the cloud and be efficient. So they separate out the compute and the storage, right? So because
Very
message,
good. But this is a cliffhanger. What I would
yeah,
like to do is to
yeah,
re-invite you back and
okay,
just talk
yeah,
about this,
okay,
because I just noticed, what you did was way too interesting. So I would
okay,
say we just spent, I was really curious about Unix and Java. You wrote to Java,
yeah,
and what I would like to talk, deep dive into Pulsar, if you like, because I'm
oh,
also interested in streaming. So the
sure,
next time we will just cover, what you said right now. Why I interrupt you? In my perspective, separating the compute from the storage is cloud
yeah,
native. You have to
yes,
do this with database. You have to
yeah,
also to do this with, and for me, Pulsar or Kafka is more or less a database. Okay,
yeah,
they are able to store the data forever. This is
yeah,
like, a persistent log. It's
yeah,
very similar to database. And of
that's right.
course, you can, have something like messaging on top of that. And
Yes,
and even in database, if you have a really cloud native database, so what
yeah,
happens is the storage and the compute are separated. So this was way too interesting. So I have to, to say, you have to stop. Talk is too
okay,
interesting. And next time we will spend the entire hour just about Java, please, and Pulsar. So we can
okay.
cover, if you like, from the bottom, what it does, and then Java on top of it. It would really, for me, really interesting, to talk about
Okay,
Pulsar
great.
with you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would be very happy to talk about it too. I get excited in talking about, yeah, why do we want Pulsar? Kind of, yeah. So
Yeah,
wonderful.
why Pulsar in Java, and what I would
Yeah,
also like to
and
talk with
Java.
you,
That's right.
messaging
Great.
versus
Sounds
eventing,
good.
event sourcing, and streaming. If you
Oops.
like, this would be really interesting.
Adam, are you there? Oh,
Yes,
I lost you like a second or something. But okay, good. I got it.
no problem. So next time,
Okay.
and what I would like to ask you, where people can find you on the internet. Maybe you have some resources, to your company and your Twitter account, or blog, or whatever you have.
Oh, sure. Yes, yes, obviously. So for me, right, I have my Twitter account,
Hmm.
MGRYGLES. I think I can also share it with you afterwards.
Yeah,
And
sure.
yeah, and then also with my company is datastacks.com, and there's also Astra, that's the managed cloud platform. And
Astra.
on
Okay.
Astra, ASTRA. So, but folks, if you go to datastacks.com, you can find a whole bunch of information. There's documentation too. We're still working up. I mean, the team is still working on, kind of populating with more useful information that it is being worked on too. So, yeah. And then I actually myself, I have a Twitch live coding stream too every Wednesday. So,
Wow.
yes,
So every Wednesday you are hacking Pulsar with Java.
yeah, with Java, and it's kind of chatting, doing some projects, and kind of working on it, and inviting people if people wants to,
Perfect.
you know.
You have a
Yes,
Twitch channel. This is great. And every Thursday you said.
actually, it would be Wednesday. Normally, if I'm not traveling, is yeah, Wednesday, and okay, so that would be Wednesday afternoon, although it's Central Time, so it's evening time for you
Okay.
in Central European time. But yeah, but I try to do it so it's not way too late, maybe
But you are
9
announcing your Twitch sessions on Twitter, right?
on Twitter. I've done it before, but I have not done automatic. So maybe I should do something more automatic and announce
Whatever.
it.
We will
Although,
put you will
yeah,
put a link to the show notes to your hacking
sure.
sessions for the
Okay,
listeners.
sounds good. Yeah, yeah, and I can
It
invite
was
you too.
really nice. Yeah,
Thank you.
it was really nice to meet you the second time. Now virtually, but the first one was nicer in Poland. And
Yeah.
I would say see you next time.
See you. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, see you. Thank you.